BSN's Motoring 96 is brought to you by Quaker State, the intelligent oil for longer engine life, and Midas, the way it should be.
You know, we've been doing this program for over 8 years, but I have the feeling that the next couple of editions of Motoring could be the fastest programs we've ever done, and the reasons are quite simple. Over here you have your basic Ferrari F355, top speed, around 200 miles an hour. Beside it, the Extra 300 aerobatic aircraft and a member of Canada's newest aerobatic team, top speed, 275. And in the back, we've got a truck. I mean, how fast can a truck go? Would you believe 376 miles an hour? Well, this week we're at the Hamilton International Airport, site of the annual air show. And as we're about to see, they're going to be clocking not only air speeds here, but ground speed performances as well.
His grandchildren think he's the coolest grandfather in the world. Well, he's certainly the fastest. For the past 12 years, Les Shockley has been behind the wheel of the world's fastest truck. When Les began driving jet cars about 20 years ago, he was one of about 7. Then one day he noticed that number had grown to over 40, and it was time for a change.
I was looking for something new and unique and really different, and so I posed the question to my family. I said, hey, we've got to come up with something really neat, something unique, something that nobody in the world has ever done. And my oldest boy came up with the idea of building a full-size truck with a couple of jet engines on it. And as you can tell, it ended up with 3. Like everything I do, I overdo. But I thought it was a pretty dumb idea, since it's not a race car. I mean, it's as aerodynamic as a house, you know. And the more I thought about it and really checked into it, the better I thought the deal would be. And after a couple of years researching, I decided to go ahead and build it. And it took another 3 years from the time I decided to build it until I actually had it designed and all put together and actually running. And June 30th of 1984, I made the original test runs on it. I ran 201.78 miles an hour the first time I fired it up.
Since then, the jet truck has been in hot demand, with Les and his wife Donna traveling North America 12 months of the year.
These are the parachute cans. We've got 2 16-footer parachutes in each one of these cans, and I'm watering down the protective covering so that they don't burn off when we do the fireballs.
The only actual stock parts on it is the cab, the top of the sleeper, and some of the trim. The front end is fiberglass and Kevlar to withstand the dynamic pressure it has to it in speeds in excess of 300 miles an hour. The sleeper is built out of aircraft aluminum, and obviously everything is braced pretty well. The chassis is actually built out of aircraft quality chromoly tubing. It's very strong and very light. The brakes had to be special built. It's the only set of brakes like it in the world. They're 16-inch rotors and use race car calipers and a metallic brake pad on it, something of my own design. I actually built the whole brake system myself. These were a non-afterburning engine used on a trainer, and so we built our own afterburners and fuel systems and everything to put on the fire show that you see, plus to give it more added thrust. These engines develop 3,500 pounds of thrust in the airplane, and I get 6,300 apiece out of them. Now what that means for the layman is this thing has 4 times the power-to-weight ratio of an F-14 Tomcat. It actually has so much power, if you stood on its back bumper and lit the burners and shot it straight up, it would accelerate vertically at 3 Gs. And that's roughly twice what the space shuttle accelerates at, and that's the fastest mover we've ever built off of a pad.
You're part showman too, but you've done this so often. You have to just make sure you don't get lackadaisical about it.
Oh yeah, you bet. Years ago, that used to happen to me. You just get so relaxed and doing this thing that you just think there's no way in the world that you can get hurt. And then things would happen to you to change your mind, let you realize that, yeah, you could die any single day in these things. And that's kind of the sad side of the business, but it's definitely a fact, something you always have to keep in the forefront of your mind.
Mom, Dad, I always wanted to fly. I'm signing away my life.
Well, good luck, man.
See you, Dad. It's been nice, okay?
Any last infamous words of wisdom?
I think I left you that camera in my will, but...
Well?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. He said it was going 3 times as fast as an F-15. It was just, my stomach was up about here, right in my throat. And before it, I'm thinking, I always say the older I get, the less chances I want to take. Here I am sitting in a jet-powered truck with a guy I don't know, and it's all over, and I just signed my life away. It was fantastic, and now I know why these guys love doing what they do. It was, what a rush. It was the ultimate. The ultimate. It's sexy, it's sassy, it's a Suzuki, it's the all-new X90, a car that might be driven by Judy Jetson. The first time I saw an X90 in the flesh, my first impression was how much it looks like one of the spaceships used in the Jetsons cartoon. The cute bodywork with a disproportionately large greenhouse perched on top. The greenhouse gives the interior a nice, light, airy feel. That said, it does little to eliminate blind spots. The X90 has a particularly bad one because of the size and shape of the B-cum-C pillar. Even with the mirrors set correctly, one must exercise extreme caution before making a lane change. Power for the X90 is supplied by a fuel-injected 1.6-litre inline-4. Now I'll have more on this in a moment. Matched with this engine is a 4-speed electronically controlled automatic transmission that comes complete with an on-off button for the overdrive and dual modes. The power and normal modes change the transmission's emphasis. Obviously in normal, fuel economy is given priority whilst the power mode affects performance. In the latter, the upshifts are decidedly crisper and made in a more timely fashion. From the transmission, the power is relayed to the road wheels through a transfer case that features 2- and 4-wheel drive plus 4-wheel drive low. You can shift on the fly, and thanks to the automatic locking hubs, one doesn't have to worry about making sure that the hubs themselves are locked before venturing off-road or onto a slippery road surface. The shifting procedure is simple and effective. One of the shortcomings with this X90 is the engine. The reason? Only 95 horsepower and 98 pounds-feet of torque. Get above 4,500 RPM and the only thing the engine does is make more noise. It certainly doesn't make it go any quicker. On a more positive note, the X90 delivers excellent gas mileage, averaging 8.8 litres per 100 kilometres or 32 miles per gallon. The suspension is comprised of McPherson struts and a stabilizer bar up front and a rigid axle with lower trailing arms and upper A-arms in the rear. The ride comfort, while more in keeping with a truck than a car, is not at all uncomfortable. Large undulating bumps are cushioned nicely and even expansion joints do not cause too much of a reaction. On the handling side of the equation, the X90 does not fare as well. First, the short wheelbase and narrow track conspire to have a very limiting effect on the car. Push it hard into a corner and oversteer is never too far away. Second, the ball and nut steering is less than positive. The on-center feel is rather vague and the self-centering effect rather tame. All in all, more than a little disappointing. The brake system features front discs, rear drums and standard anti-lock. During the brake test, the X90 performed admirably, especially when you factor in the slippery road conditions. The stopping distances averaged 117 feet from 80k. The pedal feel is much better than average and the anti-lock system has the desired effect. As with other ABS systems I like, this one is not overly eager to intervene. The conversion from coupe to convertible is as simple as that. Now while Suzuki suggests you store these things in the trunk, if it happens to be full, it's not a problem, because they will fit nice and neatly behind the seats. It's as simple as that. The interior of the X90 has been treated very well. The cabin is roomy, offers plenty of head and leg room, and comes with a surprisingly high degree of standard equipment.
ranging from tilt steering to power locks and windows. The seats are upholstered in the snazziest material I've encountered to date. They also offer exceptional comfort and long range of travel. Suffice it to say that even the tallest Raptor should be able to find a comfortable driving position. My only complaint with the interior layout is the radio. While it offers excellent sound quality, it is very difficult to operate even without gloves. Put them on and forget it. Three things irk me about the trunk on this X90. First of all, the only way into the back is with the key. It needs and requires an interior remote release. Secondly, there's no insulation. When you drive through a puddle, it sounds like somebody having a pee on a tin roof. Lastly, we've got a nice red car. What color's the interior of the trunk? Orange. I mean, for $1.50 you could paint it, so why not? And it doesn't stop here, it's exactly the same under the hood. Tacky, tacky, tacky. My gripes aside, the trunk is roomy, well-shaped, and will accommodate all the luggage the two occupants will ever need. On the safety front, the X90 fares well with dual airbags, standard ABS and four-wheel drive, plus adjustable upper seatbelt anchors. Well, that's it for this edition of Test Drive and the X90. You know, this car has got great road presence. It's as cute as a button, so why wouldn't it? The drawback? The execution is not the equal of the concept.
We're back at the Hamilton International Air Show, and in just a few minutes we're going to join Bill Gardner on the ground in the garage. But first, we're going to take off and meet the men and women who have formed Canada's newest aerobatic team.
Three of the team member, including me, we have background at the snowbirds. The fourth member is from Switzerland. She's a gold medalist in advanced aerobatic team. So we all put that together, and then we said, well, I think we got a good potential for an aerobatic team. And we received the aircraft in March coming from Germany. And it is an aerobatic aircraft. It's a prop and it goes a little bit slowly. But the turnaround is smaller, so we can keep everything in front of the people. You can do more aerobatic maneuvers. The G forces on that aircraft, on the jet we're limited to +7 -3 G. On this aircraft is +10 -10 G. So I think you're going to hurt yourself before you hurt the aircraft.
What do you drive?
I'm driving a 4Runner, Toyota 4Runner.
Where do you feel safest?
In my aircraft, because I'm in total control, like when I'm driving, but when I'm flying with my teammates, I know what they're going to be doing. When I'm on the road, I don't know what somebody else is going to be doing to me.
You know, I always wonder if people from warmer climates come to Canada in the wintertime and see all our vehicles plugged into these 110-volt cords and think that maybe we're one step ahead of the game on electric vehicles. Well, I'm sure most of you recognize this as a plug-in for an engine block heater. That's what I want to talk about today. So we're going to go inside the shop, have a look at one, and show you where they install on a vehicle. One of the first things you want to do on an installation like this is drain all the coolant out of the block, or in the case of this V6 engine, we're going to drain the entire left cylinder bank of all its coolant. Now, the first order of business, of course, like any accessory installation, get out the instructions. In this case, the instructions tell us that the block heater goes in the left side of the engine in the rear frost plug hole. The element points at the 9 o'clock position. Now, in order to install the block heater, we first have to remove one of the frost plugs out of the engine. There's a sample of 3 different frost plugs of different sizes that could be in an engine. You could have anywhere from 4, 6, or 8 frost plugs in any given engine. And in some cases, you may have to remove an accessory like a starter motor or a manifold or something like this to get at that installation. There's the block heater element itself. Everything that you see from here inboard is immersed in engine coolant and inside the engine block. Once it's installed, that's all you'll see from the outside of the engine. Now, that's the heating element itself right there. It's just exactly like the element in an electric kettle. This one happens to be 600 watts. For example, an electric kettle has a 1500 watt element. Now, this 600 watt block heater would be what we would use in a V6 or V8 engine. 4-cylinder engines typically use a 400 watt heating element. There's the little wing bolt that expands after we tighten the set screw and get this in the correct installation. Remember that this one's going to go in with the element pointing at the 9 o'clock position. We'll tighten down that little screw with an Allen wrench, and then it's properly sealed. There's the O-ring that makes the fluid seal and prevents the coolant from leaking out of the block. Next thing to do is plug in the 110 volt electrical cord. Goes in like that. We'll plug it in till the shoulder bottoms out against the heating element, and then route our cord all the way up to the grill of the vehicle and attach it securely to the grill. Now I want you to think of this block heater not only as a winter starting aid, but as an efficiency device as well, because this can save you an awful lot of fuel if you use it on a regular basis during the winter time. You don't need it plugged in for any more than 4 hours. It's designed to have a maximum temperature raise of 40 degrees Celsius after 4 hours of use. And in most weather conditions, for example, minus 10 degrees, even an hour or an hour and a half is more than enough to make that engine lukewarm. It'll start easily, it'll use a lot less fuel, and it'll emit greatly reduced tailpipe emissions, so you're helping the environment as well. And you're saving a lot of wear and tear in your engine as well. It'll extend the life of that vehicle because it's already lukewarm when you start it up. So don't just think of it as a winter starting aid, it's an efficiency device as well. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 96.
Journalists from across Canada were in Shannonville, Ontario recently for the annual Car of the Year Test Fest. All the 96 models were available for evaluation by members of the Automobile Journalists Association of Canada.
Actually, yeah, we've come a long way. When this event first started out, let's say 7-8 years ago, it was a much more casual type affair. A number of manufacturers, ourselves included, would meet at a certain location in this vicinity around Belleville. We'd go to a certain hotel. Everybody would sort of bring one or two of their latest models, and we'd exchange keys and test them on the country roads, just so we knew what our competitors were doing and vice versa. What happened over the years is that the automotive media became more involved in this aspect of it. And in terms of getting an opportunity to really test the cars with on-track conditions as well as on-road, normal road conditions, this became the site. So it's grown by leaps and bounds year by year. In fact, this is probably the largest event of its kind in the world. There are very few countries in the world, I think even Germany and the US included, where you have all of the automotive manufacturers come to a location at a given time to have the journalists evaluate their cars.
Okay, well, we're riding in a brand new Mercury Sable. It's a 4-door sedan. But what we're doing today is trying to find out how this car feels on a track. Can I see out the window? Can I see the old lady across the street coming across? Is the vision here? This blocks your view. I want to find out if this mirror is giving me an indication of who's behind.
Guess that's a big concept, huh?
Well, I imagine. I don't know if GM will exactly approve, but would you have a knife or something to cut?
Well, I was probably smarter this year than last year in that I did my homework before coming here. I had test-driven most of these cars before coming here. Not to say that my mind was made up, but at least I had done the background work. While I'm here, though, I will make my final decision on what I think are the best cars and the ones that I can, with a good feeling in my heart, recommend to the consumers. I think what we recommend to consumers is important. How we test them and the tests that we put them through, the results are important for consumers.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns frost plugs. First of all, let's have a look at one of these, because if you've played your cards right, maybe you've never had to deal with one of these critters. There's what it looks like. It's a little cup-shaped steel plug that's a friction fit in the engine block or cylinder head. It presses into that casting. The idea of it is to protect that casting from damage if the engine's cooling system should ever become frozen. If you've forgotten to put antifreeze in that engine or watered down your coolant during the summer, winter comes along, you get a minus 20 day, and you only had minus 10 freeze protection. The idea of this frost plug is that it should pop out of the engine casting, relieve the pressure from that ice, and prevent that expensive casting from cracking. There's a number of frost plugs in any given engine, and some of them are easy to get at and others are really tough to get at. So you want to avoid at all costs the possibility of one of these popping out. And you do that by maintaining the freeze protection of your antifreeze. Occasionally one of these things will eat through with corrosion and have to be replaced anyways, but you don't want one to pop out from a freeze up. Check that antifreeze freeze protection, record it with a piece of crayon close to the radiator, and record the date you checked it. That's your Midas tip of the week.
Sure doesn't look like Canada in November, Toto. We'll tell you why we're in Arizona coming up on Kenzie's Corner.
Kenzie's Corner with Jim Kenzie.
Like politicians everywhere, American legislators are trying to get out of the face of the public. They're putting more power into the hands of the individual states and more responsibility on individual citizens. One example is the elimination of a blanket national speed limit, the dreaded double nickel, or more recently, 65 miles an hour. Some states have already said they're going to raise the limit to 70, even 75 miles an hour. Montana may go back to the reasonable and proper limit, otherwise no speed limit at all. Now, of course, the safety Nazis are up in arms, saying there's going to be carnage on the highway, yada, yada, yada. And their main allies in this battle are the insurance companies. Now, you might think that the insurance companies have a vested interest in traffic safety. Fewer deaths means fewer payouts. But it's not the expense side of the ledger that's important to the insurance companies, it's the revenue side. If you're going 75 miles an hour in a 55 zone and you get caught, there's a huge fine, points on your license, and a huge hit on your insurance premium, and that'll stay there for up to 5 years. If you're going 75 in the 75 zone, there's no ticket, no premium hike. Now, of course, speed limits have never been shown to reduce speeds, let alone save lives. Now, in Canada, we already have provincial rights. Provinces set their own speed limits. But you know, those insurance companies are lurking in the weeds. I'm Jim Kenzie.
The old and the new, and I'd say both real impressive. This, of course, as I mentioned earlier, is a brand new Ferrari F355. Beautiful, isn't it? Would you like to see more? Well, tune in next week as we hang out with Ferrari on the street, at the track, and in the showroom. We continue to bring you more stories about cars, planes, and the people who drive them.
I thought it was immense fun. I mean, it was just a wonderful car. I mean, we used to drive in Miatas and seeing them as the benchmarks in fun sports cars, but I think this has taken it on to a new level. It's got the strongest chassis that I've come across. I mean, you can throw it into bends and it just sticks on. I think your grandma could drive this at 10/10ths of the speed. It's a wonderful car. I think they've done a great job. But heck, if you put an order in now, I think it's going to be 6 months to a year before you get hold of one. Because this is going to be the hottest thing on four wheels, I'm convinced.
TSN's Motoring 96 has been brought to you by Quaker State, the intelligent oil for longer engine life, and Midas, the way it should be.
It was far out.